back to the program. We all knew that artificial intelligence would probably have some positive uses. And, of course, folks are figuring out all the negative and bad things that they can make with AI. For example, what's politely described as non-consensual pornography has become easier to create than ever before because of AI, artificial intelligence. Should Congress crack down on that, or does that risk crossing the line on free speech? Satya Thallam joins me now, who's Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at Americans for Responsible Innovation. Satya, welcome back.
Lars, my friend, good to be with you.
I knew this one was going to be thorny because then you run into the problem. You say, okay, you can't make these kinds of images, even though the images might look, and you can tell me because you may be more familiar than I am, AI can apparently be used to create amazingly realistic both video and still images. And if you use AI to create fake images, can the government ban that? And should the government ban that? And does that cross the First Amendment line?
Well, on the first part, we know from studies and surveys, using images that are not intimate or sexual in nature, but just asking people to distinguish between real images and AI-generated images, increasingly people are not able to distinguish between them. Sometimes experts can, but the rate at which these things are becoming better and faster and easier to create is, I wouldn't say alarming, but it's going in one direction, right? So on that first question, it's not a question of, are these different? They are indistinguishable to the human eye, and I think ultimately that is what matters. We already have a law which prohibits what we call revenge porn, right? Yep. These are not AI generated generally. These are images that maybe two partners took when they're intimate, and after breaking up, someone decided to post it without any consent online, potentially ruining that person's life and job prospects for years to come.
No doubt.
The point is, nobody really has that much of an issue with that law. All the current laws that are being debated, including the one that President Trump mentioned in his joint address, Take It Down Act, is updating those definitions to reflect AI-generated images because they wouldn't be covered under the current law.
See, and the only thing that gets me curious, because, Satya, I'm a First Amendment purist. I love the First Amendment. I don't love the idea of the government defining what you can and what you cannot do in expression. So maybe I'll try it this way. You're familiar with the book by Vladimir Nabokov called Lolita?
That's right.
Could the government outlaw writing about this old pervert who perved on a very, very young child and did things with her that are illegal to do, but a book was written about it, and it was all fictional? You couldn't ban that under the First Amendment, could you? Or could you?
No, that's right. And obviously that was a controversial book and kind of a canonical example of where do the limits of free speech end, if anywhere. Here's the difference. The government isn't actually defining who's a victim and who's the perpetrator. The law that's currently under debate, Take It Down, allows a purported victim to be able to have a right of action against someone, they say, and make the case that this image was meant to be of me. It is not an image. It's an image of its sexual nature, including, I should mention, it could be of a child, right? And I don't think that we believe that creating a sexual image of an underage person is within the normal, what we consider the bounds of allowable free speech that's necessary.
I would agree all day long on that. I agree all day long on that one, Satya.
So I think the difference is this. It's not a government agency saying we like this, we don't like this, this is allowed, this isn't allowed. It allows recourse for if a person finds that their image has been used in a certain way that is meant to be sexually exploitative, they at least have a means to go to a court and say, here's the harm that it's done to me. Is there some way for me to disincentivize this kind of behavior?
And in fact, I'd like to find ways to do that. Try to say, don't do this kind of stuff. But then it starts to remind me of some of the copyright and patent debates we get in, because you write a song and it's a hit song. And then I go out and write a song that's very like your song, and you go to court and you say, hey, Lars stole my song. And then the courts decide it's enough like yours that I violated your patent or copyright. probably copyright in that case, or they decide, no, it's different enough that it's not the same thing. So do we just create a new marketplace where these people go out and say, yeah, I made these images, and boy, they sure do look like this famous, somebody who's now suing. You say, but they're 10% different or 15% different. Are we going to find people who say, I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to play on somebody's celebrity, and then I'm going to make an image, but the image will be different enough that I'll skate out from under any kind of responsibility?
Well, look, Lars, I can't pretend to say there aren't going to be fine line cases. These things, when we're talking about creative acts of creation, we're basically talking about an infinite universe, right? Yep. There are an infinite number of ideas a person can have, and that can be expressed through image, through words, through music. Famously, I remember that George Harrison was sued by the copyright owners of the Chiffons for My Sweet Lord, right? That was like a famous copyright case.
It was.
I think the smell test was pretty darn similar.
It was.
But I think you're right. These are the questions that we have to answer. But I think waving our hands and saying we're worried about those fine line cases, so therefore we won't worry about the egregious cases that are way out in the ends that everyone agrees serve no social value. Like, look, Lars, I know you're a free market guy. And so am I. And for the most part, I'm of the mind that the market mechanisms, competition tend to produce the most socially valued, most social value to society, right?
Yep.
But I have not seen a convincing argument, given the path that the rate of technological advance in AI is working. In these specific cases, what is the market mechanism that is going to drive out those kinds of images, those kinds of products that we agree serve no social value in favor of good images and things that may have social value? Now, copyright was created as a market mechanism, right? Yep. There's no reason for me to invest in an idea if I can't protect it, at least for some period, and sell it and license it and so on. Those questions are still going to be true in AI, and the Patent and Trademark Office and Congress are debating those right now. I think this is a different category. These are things where I could take a picture of your headshot on the Lars Larson radio show and create all kinds of images that are meant to be sexually exploitative. And well, you wouldn't need to look for a job, but if someone needed to look for a job and someone looked them up and said, hey, I've found all these naked images of you, I can't hire you.
God forbid.
We have to figure out some mechanism to I say police, and I don't mean the actual police, but some way that the market can recognize that. And I think this is a reasonable approach. Again, it's not a government agency reviewing material and saying what's in, what's out. It's me being able to at least present my case to a court and say, the production of these images were indistinguishable to my future employer. That's done me real harm. Can I have some kind of recourse? Do I have a mechanism to force them to take it down?
And you know what I'm worried about, Satya, honestly, is I've got a face for radio, so don't worry about my face. But if you've got some famous Hollywood starlet, a young lady, and they go and take advantage of this, and she says, okay, I'm going to take legal action. And her lawyer says to her, you don't like the fact that this stuff is out there, and I don't either, but if we bring the legal case, it's probably going to have the result that even more people are going to see these objectionable images. And I just worry about the process being the punishment, that the victim ends up getting punished, because to seek justice, you're going to have to bring a lawsuit. And if somebody famous from Hollywood, a pretty girl, brings a lawsuit, and her lawyer says, yeah, now 5 times as many people are going to see these images instead, and she gets no justice out of it all. I worry about that. That's Satya Thallam, who is a Senior Vice President of Government Affairs at Americans for Responsible Innovation. Satya, it's always a pleasure to have you.